Appreciate it. All right. Man, you guys are getting in your leg workout with all these standing ovations. I'm like, forget CrossFit, just come to Plywood. My name is Jess. I am so excited to be here. A little bit about me before we get into it. I would say what you guys probably know me for, my biggest career accomplishment was when I made it on CNN, when I completed something called the Krispy Kreme Challenge. And it is where you eat a dozen glazed Krispy Kreme donuts, and then you run 5 miles. Anyone think they could do it? There we go, we have a taker. I'm gonna hold you to it. As Jeff said, I am currently living in an Airstream with my husband. We're traveling around the country. We have been since April, going to children's hospitals, different speaking events. It's funny because my husband's 6'5". He played football at NC State, so he's like a bigger guy. So anything he does in the Airstream is like straight out of the movie Elf. You know, where he's in the shower, like splashing water on himself, like, I'm gonna have my dinner now. But it's been really fun. Also, another thing you should know about me, I can't cook at all. Pinterest is dreaming for me. I'll find a cute little pancake, and I'm like, this looks simple enough. I could make this for a little Sunday brunch, a little bunny pancake. And then it turns out looking something like this. But I'm gonna tell you guys something. I can relate a lot to this pancake. Because on social media, we're all this pancake. We're living our best life, our business is booming, we sip a green juice every morning, namaste every day. But in reality, sometimes we're just doing our best and it doesn't work out. So I want permission today to give you this version of my story. I'm not gonna give you a pretty pancake. I'm not gonna make things seem easier than they were. I'm gonna give you the real deal. Thank you. So my story starts in a land far, far away called Orlando. And I was interning in Disney World my freshman year of college. Has anyone in here ever been to Disney before? Okay, so you know those photo pass photographers that want to take your picture all the time and have the super attractive safari outfit on with like the pants up to here? That was me. I absolutely loved it. It was so much fun. I got to meet people from all over the world. I got to work in Disney, which was an amazing company to learn from. But my favorite thing that I got to do when I worked in Disney World was I got to photograph kids that were there on their wish through the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So if anyone is unfamiliar, Make-A-Wish grants wishes to kids with life-threatening illnesses. So going to Disney World was the most popular wish among Make-A-Wish kids. So I got to photograph them like meeting the princesses and seeing the castle for the first time. And it was the coolest part of my day to be a small part of theirs. And so when I got back to school, I applied for an internship at Make-A-Wish. And the real pancake story is that they said that they didn't have any internships. They didn't have a program set up yet. So I said, look, if you let me show up every day to your office, I will do the things that you don't want to do. I will take out the trash. I will organize a supply closet. Just let me be a part of this. And so they did. And that's exactly what I was doing when I would show up every day. I was doing on paper what seemed really tedious work. I was cold calling people for money and getting hung up on most of the time. I was licking thousands of envelopes, but it was the first time in my life where it didn't matter what I was doing because I was so clearly connected to why I was doing it. Every single thing I did, I could draw a straight line to helping make a wish come true. So I started to have this revelation at 18 years old thinking, well, maybe our lives and the careers that we choose for ourselves doesn't have to be something where we just clock in and clock out and get a paycheck every few weeks. It can be something every day when our alarm goes off. We know that it matters that we're there. So it was towards the end of my internship, and I had worked really hard, and they said they wanted to give me a little bit more responsibility. So they assigned me a wish child, and I got to be like the curator of her wish. And her name was Renee, and she was 4 years old, and she wanted to go to Disney World, but specifically to meet Sleeping Beauty. She drew a hard line at the Sleeping Beauty part. So I planned this going away party with her and her friends that was princess themed. I worked with the parks to make sure, Sleeping Beauty could be at all their meals, and it was really coming together. About a week before she was scheduled to go on her wish, she had a brain tumor, and she was in this new treatment, and they had a final doctor's visit just as a routine checkup. Things had been looking good. But in this visit, they did some scans, and they realized that they had missed something, and that there was another tumor, and that she had been rejecting all the treatments that they had tried. And they told her that she was too sick to go on her wish. And the worst part about it was that they just sent her home to focus on quality of life. And I remember being in the office that day and hearing my boss on the phone and just thinking to myself, this can't be the story, Sometimes we have these experiences that we can't control, but we can always control what it means to us and how we respond. So I just did a quick Google search, looked up local costume shops, and in a few hours, I arrived on her doorstep, dressed as Sleeping Beauty, and tried to make her wish come true that day. And I brought her a matching dress and a crown that said Princess Renee, and read her the story of Sleeping Beauty, and spent the whole day with her and her family in character. She totally bought it. And it was the clearest before and after moment of my life. The person that I was walking up those steps to her house was different than the person walking down them. And sometimes when we want to do something big, when we want to create change, when we have an idea, we experience hard things like this. But from this experience, I realized that hard times actually give us a choice. Hard times can be the excuse as to why we do less, or they can be the reason as to why we do more. Boiling water can soften a potato but harden an egg. It's not as much about the circumstance as it is about the subject. Think about some of the best movements that have started. Think about the nonprofits that you've heard about while you're here. Did any of them happen when things were good? No. Because when things are bad, that's when we move. That's when we have this choice, the excuse to do less or the reason to do more. And I didn't want Renee to be the excuse as to why I didn't want to put myself through something like this again. I wanted her to be the reason that I could look back years from now and say, because of her, I did this. And one of the things I had noticed was girls like her loved to wear headbands after losing their hair to chemotherapy. A lot of them would be offered wigs or hats, but headbands were a perfect way for them to restore their self-confidence without hiding what they were going through. So my idea was this. I was like, okay, great. So for every headband I sell, I'm going to donate a headband to a child with cancer. And I called it Headbands of Hope. I was a junior in college at NC State studying communications, couldn't even spell entrepreneur. Still can't really spell it. It's a tough word. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Real pancake. But I was on this university's campus, so I walked over to the business school, begged professors for 15 minutes of their time. I'm like, look, what are taxes, and should I be concerned about them? And I walked over to the graphic design school when I needed a logo. This is a true story. Waited for a class to get out, approached the teacher who had no idea who I was, and I was like, you know what would be a great idea? Is if for your next class assignment, everyone had to create me a logo, and I picked the best one. And that was how I got my first logo. I didn't know how to build a website, so I met with a computer design student every day for lunch for her to teach me Photoshop and Shopify, and I paid her in Chipotle burritos. And that was how I got my website. I was burrito strapping my business. The last thing I had to do was I had to find a manufacturer. So I found this website with all these US manufacturers on there, and I just started throwing darts, hoping that someone would just take a chance on me. And I knew, I didn't have the right terminology, and I was, I didn't know what I was doing, but I'm just hoping someone would see the potential in this idea. And after months of radio silence, this factory in Kansas got back to me. We got on a call. I told them about my idea. They were like, "That's beautiful. We want to help you." And so I was thrilled. So they shipped me some samples of some headband product, and I gave them feedback and sent them back. So for about 2 more months, we did sampling. Finally, they shipped me a headband that I was good to go with. So I was like, all right, let's do it, Let's make this headband. So they sent me over the invoice, and it was for $10,000. And I was like, I probably should have asked this before. But I'm gonna be honest, it wasn't that I didn't know that I was gonna have to pay for them. I was just so excited someone was talking to me, I didn't wanna kill the vibe. And that sounds ridiculous, but I think that's an honest thing that sometimes we go through where we feel this power dynamic that isn't really even there, it's in our head. I had every right to question them just as they were questioning me. So I was in a pickle because this was about $9,500 more than what I had in my bank account at the time. So I was talking to my dad, who's also an entrepreneur, and I was like, look, should I try to get a loan from the bank, and pay interest? Should I get an investor and give away equity? He was like, look, one mistake I made with my business was I gave away too much equity too early, and I don't want you to have to do the same thing. I've seen your business plan. I think this is gonna be big. So I will front you the $10,000, and you can pay me back when the business starts to make money. And that was like hearing my dog speak English. I love my dad, and he's wonderful, but our childhood was never like, oh, you want a pony? You get a pony. And I recognize also the immense privilege emotionally and financially that this came from, and there's so many people that had a way steeper hill to climb than I did. But needless to say, I accepted his offer. I ran to the bank. It was a Friday afternoon. I printed off my wiring instructions. I wired her $10,000, and I never heard from her again. Yeah, I had some other words, which I won't say here, but I felt like, when you're trying to do something and there's that voice in your head that you try to silence that tells you maybe you're not qualified or this isn't you. That voice was louder than ever. But sometimes when we want to do something big, we have an idea, we have something we want to do, a goal in our mind, we plug it in to our internal GPS. It's like, great, you want to start that company? This is the way you get there. This is the way it's always been done. So then you start marching down that path. And then all of a sudden, maybe there's road closures or a mudslide or a cute family of turtles crossing the street. And that way that you planned doesn't work. But when you're told that that's the way, it makes you feel like the whole thing doesn't work. But there will always be another way to get to where you want to go if you believe in that end destination enough. No one would sign Jay-Z when he was first putting out his music, so he started his own record label and signed himself. Probably not the most direct way to get his music out there, but it was a way. So I went to bed that night, and I thought, maybe I could just sweep this under the rug and pretend like it never happened and start applying for jobs so I can pay my dad back. But then I thought, this idea was sparked from a problem. And so it's not about the failure of this business, it's about a problem not being solved. And that's what I couldn't sit with. And that's what makes entrepreneurs resilient, is when their business solves a problem that's bigger than them. And so I got up, I went to my school of entrepreneurship that was giving away $300 grants to students who were starting businesses. Mind you, I lost $10,000, but $300 was a starting point. I bought 2 different types of headbands from some supplier on Etsy in North Dakota who let me buy like super low minimums. I threw both of those headbands up on my website April 25th, 2012. Today we've been in Vanity Fair, Today's Show, Good Morning America. I'm making my debut on QVC next month, so look out for that. We do headbands now for the NBA. Even some celebrities have worn our headbands, like Lea Michele, Lauren Conrad, Lily Reinhart, even the Kardashians, which I haven't decided how I feel about that. But my favorite thing is what we've been able to do as a result of that. We've been able to donate headbands to every children's hospital in America in 15 countries. We've hosted proms at children's hospitals. We started this DIY program where kids can actually design and create their own headbands. And, can I get a drum roll? I paid my dad back. Thank you. I was like, $10,001, here's some interest for you. But failures are not reflections of worth. They're just reflections of growth. I used to think this was a reflection of who I was as a person. But now I realize when you're creating change, it's not if, it's when. And failure is not opposite of success, it's just a part of it. And so we need to change the dialogue and be more transparent and share the real pancake stories. One of my friends, Laura, she studied abroad in the country that she went to. It was really normal to eat bugs. So she's like, we should be eating bugs in America. So she created a chip made of ground cricket powder, called them chirps. Barbecue flavor is actually really good. And she needed money to start her idea, so she got connected with this environmental investor. She's like, this guy's perfect. He cares about the environment. I care about the environment. So she goes in, she gives her pitch, wearing her bug costume. And at the end, she holds out a platter of chirps, and she goes, bug appetit. He said, Laura, I've been an investor for 15 years, and this is the worst idea I've ever heard in my life. Laura's chirps are now sold in Disney World parks, and she just struck a deal with Mark Cuban on Shark Tank. So, eat that. The founders of Ben & Jerry's, I'll let you take a wild guess at what their names are. Jerry couldn't get into med school. Ben was trying to be a potter. So they decided to take an ice cream making course for $5 at Penn State. Renovated a gas station in Vermont, started making this chunky ice cream that people loved. And one day they looked at each other and they were like, we're selling a lot of ice cream, but we're not making any money. So they closed their doors, put that yellow sign on the door right there, and it said this: we're closed because we have no idea what we're doing. Ben & Jerry's. And then I'm going to tell you about my good friend, Will Ferrell. I'm just going to let that sit for a second. Okay, we're not actually good friends. I chased him down at a football game, and I was like, did we just become best friends? Anyone? What movie? Step Brothers, thank you. And he pretended to laugh, just like a lot of you did, too. But Will has an interesting story. I call him Will. Even after he made it on Saturday Night Live, it took him 3 years to shop around Anchorman before anyone would even read the script. But he said, but my fear of failure never approached in magnitude my fear of what if. What if I never tried at all? And if there's one thing that I can be so sure of the past 7 years of this roller coaster of Headbands of Hope, it is that failure will always feel better than regret. Period. Our scars tell stories. And in order for those stories to happen, we have to be able to take risks. We have to be able to say yes when we don't know where we're going. And we have to get used to the vulnerability that comes with leaping, finding some comfort in the chaos. And I have one more story before I leave you guys, but before I do, As Jeff was saying, I have a book that's coming out this year called Chasing the Bright Side. I write like I talk, so if you loved this speech, then you'll love the book. If you hated this speech, my name is Jen. And we're doing something fun here today, too. If you text Brightside to 555-888, I'll send you a link to pre-order it. If you pre-order it, you can find my cute mom outside. It'll make her day if you call her my sister. And show her your receipt, and you can get a free headband. We have lemons, kiwis, a bunch of fun prints right outside. So you can text that or go to chasingthebrightside.com. Also, I was in Nashville this week recording my audiobook. So if you are in any way interested in hearing me impersonate Bill Nye the Science Guy, then get the audiobook. I forgot I put that in there, and we got to that part. I was like, oh, crap, I have to read this. So this last story is one that's a little bit harder to tell. I think when I first started Headbands of Hope, everything was so clear, what I was doing, why I was doing it. But then as the business got bigger, all of a sudden there was more layers in between that. There was contracts, I have staff, and all these things. And so I started to kind of get blurry. I was at UNC Children's Hospital. I met this girl named Taylor. She picked out this purple and green headband that you see on her head, and she was awesome when we were talking, and she said that she was feeling kind of down because all of her friends were going to prom, getting asked out to prom, and prom wasn't in the works for her. She had been in the hospital for 2 years at that point. So I said, hey, I have to go to Atlanta to go to this show called Atlanta Apparel, which maybe you guys are familiar with. And when I come back, we'll have our own prom. We'll get dressed up. It'll be fun. So she adds me on Facebook Messenger. We're talking about what we're going to do and when we're going to do it. And I'm in Atlanta, and I'm so stressed about this show. I had ordered these tags to go along with the headbands, and they hadn't arrived in time. I'm standing in America's Mart on the phone with this tag company thinking this is the biggest thing in my life right now. And I remember where I was standing and all the carts going by, and I got a call from an unknown number. And I thought it was a sales call or something. I switched over the line. I'm like, hello? And it was Taylor's mom. And she was calling to tell me that Taylor passed away the night before, and that she wanted those same purple and green headbands you see right there for every female in her family to wear to her service the next day. At that moment, I just froze. It was as if I felt like the weight of an anchor pull me back down to feel my feet on the ground, and I hadn't even realized how far I had been floating. Because here was my narrative. I thought, once I can get on a big network television show, I'm going to feel like I've done something. Or once I can get on the cover of a magazine, or once I can get a book deal, or once I can do $1 million in revenue, or once I can have a team of people, or once I can have an office, or once I can get on one of those swanky 30 under 30 lists, that's when I'll feel it. And then all those things happened. Every single one of them. And they would just come and go. And so that's when I was thinking, well, what is wrong with me right now? Because everyone else around me is happier for me than I am for myself. Like, what am I missing here? And in this moment, I realized that all those things are my achievements. And these achievements are these tangible milestones that show that you're on the right track. Maybe you get an award, maybe you get a contract, a deal, a promotion. They're great, they deserve to be celebrated, but they are not our final destination. Success is something that can't be measured. It can only be felt. So I felt successful before I even returned a profit. I felt successful when I knew that my time here on this earth is adding up to something bigger than myself. So I want you to think about waking up tomorrow. I want you to think about waking up 5, 10, 20 years from now, hearing your alarm go off, getting your feet on the ground. What is going to make you feel excited to walk outside those doors? Because I'm going to tell you right now, fulfillment is not a destination. It's an active choice to how we live our life every day. Because our destiny is not an uncontrollable future. It's an active decision to write our own story. And your story has to be aligned with what you feel like your purpose is here on this earth. And remember that success is not what it looks like to others. It's what it feels like to you. Thank you guys. You guys are awesome. Appreciate you. The best. Love you guys. Thank you.